Hey, it's 5 in the morning on the cusp of the inauguration of President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris. I haven't been able to sleep. And since this is what's rolling around in my head, I thought I'd better just get up and prepare it for viewing. You know, when you get to be my age and you don't have to answer to anybody anymore, time is immaterial. I can do this because I feel like it. And I hope that if you're not there in your life, you can get there someday because it's really bliss. I'd like to talk a little bit about my influences. Those established writers of note who've affected why I write or how I write, beginning with Lance Morrow. Lance Morrow. He used to put his pieces on the last page of Time magazine, right up there with Charles Krauthammer and others. But Lance Morrow, I became enamored of him and his style. So the way he structures a piece, I like to describe it as coming in the back door. He doesn't hit his topic head on. He sort of works his way toward the thesis, using sort of a subtext or a secondary storyline or motif that leads the reader toward the main point and closes with the same motif. I love that about him. So you'll note that I probably do that with alarming frequency. Lance Morrow. My friend Cindy knew him personally. And I would have wanted to meet him, I guess, at some point. She thought he was rather a cocky sort. I suppose I didn't care. Kind of like you don't care what kind of person Woody Allen is because the movies that he makes are masterpieces, that sort of thing, that sort of, moral dilemma that some artists throw us into. The next one on my list, I think, is Garrison Keillor. I happen to know him through his sister and through the fact that he was raised by the Plymouth Brethren, and so was I. My parents knew his parents. I've spoken with him a couple times backstage at Chautauqua after shows with a friend accompanying me, since I can't travel alone if I'm going to go backstage. And his sister Linda almost married a guy from my hometown that we all know quite well. So he's almost a family friend. And it goes without saying that his narrative style is worthy of anybody's emulation. I challenge you. I challenge you. I don't think anybody can. Peggy Noonan. Peggy Noonan is on my list because she graduated from a state university and became a speechwriter to the presidential elite. I think it was Reagan, right? And she just kind of inspires me because she's a woman and rose in rank in spite of just going to a state university, as I did. I went to Fredonia State, and I make no apologies for that whatsoever. I'm proud to be a graduate of the State University of New York at Fredonia. Who else is on my list? Billy Collins. I cringe every time I even think about when I met him, because I'm sure he cringes too. and he might even remember this mug. He, too, gave a talk at Chautauqua Institution, and I had taken an Imitrex earlier that day for a migraine, and if you know anything about sumatriptan and its effect on the brain, I was in such a serotonin rush. Those drugs are powerful, and they will put you into a high, which if you don't get high by any other means, can be pretty dramatic. I hate it, but it's the only drug that gets rid of my headaches. So I had taken one earlier that day, and I know I was pretty driven. I went backstage and in full-blown mania, pressed through the crowd to hand him a slip of paper that had a poem on it that I wrote. And in the cliched, explosive cliche, glazed eyes, "You're my inspiration," or something stupid like "I love you," And the poor man's eyes glazed over, and his face contorted like he was either going to vomit or call for security. So poor Billy Collins is on my list, and not by default, because he's one of the world's greatest poets. And in the style of Billy Collins, I would have to argue that when I submit my work to Frontier Poetry's competition and somebody critiques it and tells me that I should flesh it out a little bit more with more imagery because I should draw my audience, no. My poems are capsules. I want them to hit my reader between the eyes. I want my reader to be stunned. So my poems are small, to the point, and sometimes bleak. If the topic is bleak, why should the imagery be flowery? James Kavanaugh, he was the first poet to light my match. And Winter Has Lasted Too Long. Winter Has Lasted Too Long is the anthology that was gifted to me by my elder brother's college friend, who pursued me when I was 21, who pursued me because he wanted to take my virginity and flat out told me so. And I flew to Minneapolis and spent the weekend visiting him to celebrate my 21st birthday. No, I did not give it up. I wasn't interested when I got there. He was charming, but it didn't happen. He did, however, teach me how to make pancakes using mashed bananas, and to this day, that's how I make my pancakes. I also can claim having inhaled a hashish reefer one time. It seared the lining of my throat, and I thought would destroy my singing voice forevermore, and I never took another. But James Kavanaugh's poetry has stayed with me. And I think was the first inspiration to land on my page succinctly, concise, to the point, unforgettably between the eyes. I think Kavanaugh and Collins have a lot in common. And last but not least, Alice Munro, because the short story is the only thing I have patience for anymore. I read Nathaniel Hawthorne when I was 11. I did that. Been there, done that. You can keep the epics and make movies out of them and get Mel Gibson to direct them. I prefer the short story. Short stories. My essays are like chapters in short stories. I hope you enjoy those. There's a category at the blog aptly named short stories. I hope you enjoy your travels across thelittlebarefeetblog.com, and I thank you sincerely for coming.